for Star. But the one people still joke about today is Penn and Teller's Smoke and Mirrors. It featured Desert Bus, a game where you drive a bus through a desert for 8 hours in real time with nothing happening. It became legendary for being painfully boring. Then there was Night Trap. The game caused a huge backlash. Politicians claimed it encouraged violence, especially against women. The controversy got so out of hand that it helped lead to the creation of the ESRB. But the Sega CD was expensive and failed, selling just 2.2 million copies. Still, Sega wasn't done. They released the 32X in 1994. It plugged into the top of the Genesis and added 32-bit processing. Games like Doom 32X and Virtua Fighter looked sharper and ran smoother. But something bigger was already on the way, and players knew it. The 32X didn't stand a chance. It sold just 800,000 units, an even bigger failure than the Sega CD. Meanwhile, Nintendo had its own CD plans. They originally partnered with Sony to create a disc-based add-on for the SNES called the PlayStation. But at the last minute, Nintendo backed out and signed a deal with Philips instead, leaving Sony blindsided. Sony didn't take it lightly. Fueled by betrayal, they built their own console, the PlayStation, and soon after, they would flip the entire industry on its head. As for Philips, they launched the CDI. It was sold as a futuristic all-in-one system, but it was a disaster. Weak hardware, awkward controls, and some of the worst licensed games ever, especially the Zelda and Mario titles. It barely sold 1 million units and became one of the biggest flops in gaming history. Fun fact, you could actually connect all three, the Genesis, Sega CD, and 32X, in one massive setup. It needed 3 power adapters, a mess of cables, and probably its own shelf. But if you managed it, it was the ultimate 90s flex, even if it looked ridiculous. The Sega Saturn launched in Japan in November 1994, and in North America a few months later. It had 2 32-bit CPUs and could play CDs straight out of the box. On paper, it looked great, but it was a nightmare to develop for. The hardware was so complex that it slowed everything down. Still, it had some standout games like Nights into Dreams, Panzer Dragoon Saga, and Virtua Fighter 2. There were some real gems, but most stayed in Japan or got released quietly without much attention. Meanwhile, the US launch was a disaster. Sega rushed it to stores with no warning 4 months earlier than planned. Major retailers like KB Toys and Walmart were left out and refused to stock it. Retailers were furious. Developers were angry. Gamers were confused. While Sega struggled, Nintendo came in strong with the Nintendo 64 in 1996. Their slogan was bold: get in or get out.
Nintendo 64.
The system launched at just $200.